Welcome to the Breakwaters podcast. We have a good friend over here. We got PatrickForsland from the Twins. How you doing?
George, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Let's talk about Twins. How'd you get with the Twins? You get guest services, right? How's that going? And
yeah, it's going great. This is my 23rd year with the Twins at this point. Somehow I managed to make it work here. I started with the Twins way back in 1991, actually, as a part-time operator in their call center. And I had worked at Ticketmaster briefly in town here in Minneapolis for a little while before that, as I was kind of, going in and out of college, trying to figure out what to do with myself. And studied chemistry ultimately in college. Worked at 3M for a little bit, and it just found it wasn't for me. And 1998, a position opened up as the assistant manager in the call center with the Twins, so I jumped on that. First 12 years of my career were spent on the ticket operations and ticket sales side. And then when we opened up Target Field, the position I'm in right now was created. At the Metrodome, we were just a tenant, and we really didn't have any operational control of that facility. So my boss is a guy named Dave Horsman, who's our VP of ballpark operations now. His job was essentially what mine is, which was interacting with the fans and managing the guest services staff. Now, when he moved into Target Field, it's hard to believe it's 12 years ago now. It's back in 2010. Even though we're still a tenant in this building, with the way everything was set up, we've got a large amount of operational control of this facility. And so his job became more about kind of the facility and the systems and managing that. Our guest services size about tripled in size at that point, and they needed to create this director of guest service position that I've been in ever since we opened Target Field up. So I manage all the game day event staff, primary customer service point of contact for our fans here. It's a great job. It's a lot of fun to work in this business. That's how I met you and your family way back in the day when you're here for a game. And it's like any other jobs. It's, not every day is equal, and there's some challenges certainly. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. If I lose this job at this point, I have no idea what I would do. So I'm holding on to this one for dear life. It's a great place to work and a fun business to be in. And it's a competitive sport, so always more fun when you win than when you lose. But it's still a great gig nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely a great job. You helped me out tremendously. I really appreciate it. How was the move there from the Metrodome? Obviously, closed roof, sharing like football team, the Vikings, and now have your own field. Target Field is like a top 10 stadium. It's a great stadium. It's open air though, so a lot of snow comes in. But other than that, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny to think back on the Metrodome days. It seems like a lifetime ago at this point. And as you indicated, it was a shared facility, so we shared that with the Vikings and also with the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers football team. And every September there would be a couple of days, Saturdays, where we would share the facility with the Gophers. Now, we never had a game that conflicted with the Vikings because of NFL restrictions. It just wouldn't have been possible. But there were some quick turnovers to play a baseball game in the afternoon, and then get everything switched over to host a football game, Division I football game later on that evening. The Dome, it served its purpose. Opened in 1981, and the Vikings played there, I think, until 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. And it was a great facility in its own right, but just was very outdated by the time we moved into Target Field here. And so we moved in 2010, and it was quite a process to open a facility. It's anybody who's done that in this business, no matter what sport you're in, for about 2 years or so before you move into your new facility. It's kind of like you're working two jobs because you're having to do everything that you normally do, plus do all the planning and preparation for opening the new facility. And there were, before Target Field was open, there were some plans that were floated to have a retractable roof stadium, but that was before the parcel of land that became Target Field was identified. And this parcel of land opened up, and there really just wasn't enough room for all the infrastructure you'd need to have a retractable roof. It takes a lot of space and a lot of mechanics. And this site is really tight. This is, depending on how you want to look at it and count it, this is either the smallest ballpark in MLB in terms of acreage or the second smallest, with Oracle Park out in San Francisco being the other one that's, again, depending on how you look at it, smaller, about the same size as we are. So there just wasn't the ability to do that. And so, yeah, we've shoveled this place out several times. It's one of the things I always look at in terms of whether we've had a successful season is whether I had to actually shovel this building out on the day of a game here. And we've had 3 or 4 times at least that we've had to do that. And it's a challenge, but we've always managed to get it done. So yeah, it's just outdoor baseball in Minnesota, and we got the NHL winter this next January. It's Minnesota Wild playing, I believe, the St. Louis Blues.
Yes, I love winter classics. It's always a great time.
Yeah, no, we are really looking forward to it. We were supposed to have it last year, and obviously with COVID, it got put off a year. We've been hoping to do this for a long time. But one of the things with that is that we've got to keep the snow clear pretty much the entire time up until we get to that event. Usually most winters, we just kind of let the snow go. And once it gets into March, we'll start seeing where we are and how much of it we got to spray down with hot water to get rid of, and what we got to shovel, and how we get the ballpark ready. So this year's going to be a little different. We're hoping for a light snow start to the winter here, but we'll see. We'll see.
Nice. Yeah, I remember it was like very small, the area, when I went to Target Field for the first time. I went down the highway. I was like, what are we doing? We got lost, went down the highway. This was crazy.
Yeah, but before Target Field was built, this was essentially a big parking lot, and there's an area of the ballpark that we've got graphics up about kind of how Target Field was created and the construction of the ballpark, and you see a photo of it. And when the architects first looked at this site, they said there's just no way you can build a ballpark there. It's just too small. You can't do it. And then they got kind of, I think, intrigued by the challenge of designing a ballpark that fit in this space, and they're able to do it. And we've got this, I think, beautiful ballpark. It's really tight though. We don't have a lot of storage space on site. We've got some auxiliary storage spaces off site that we pay to use. We've only got one freight elevator. A lot of facilities this size will have a couple of freight elevators just so they can move product back and forth more quickly and easily. And so a lot of the back of house stuff is really tight. But we really didn't skimp on any of the guest facing things. So it's stuff that really impacts how we operate kind of behind the scenes, but doesn't impact the experience of people that are attending the games here. We've got great owners. They're really intent on updating the ballpark and improving it. And there are several areas of the facility that are vastly different than they were when we opened up 12 years ago. So they're constantly looking for ways to improve the guest experience and also the facility itself. So it's interesting in that way. I mean, they're always pushing us to think of what we can do to improve things here. And there are things that end up happening that I would have never guessed we were going to do, and all of a sudden it's happening, and there you go.
That's awesome. My favorite part of the Target Field was the wooden floors from the Minneapolis Lakers. Awesome. The Town Ball Tavern, they have it. That was like such a great way to show Minneapolis Lakers in there. It's like so cool. It's like hardwood floors. Great touch.
Yeah, and that was just sitting in a warehouse collecting dust over at the Minneapolis Armory. And now the Armory has actually been redone as a concert venue. But, it was being used as basically a parking garage for like decades. And this floor is just sitting in there. And so we brought it over here and put a little bit of it in here. It's not part of Twins history, obviously, or baseball history, but it's part of Minnesota sports history. And so, yeah, why not? So threw some of that up in there in our Town Ball Tavern. And on the rest of the Town Ball Tavern, we pay tribute to the sport of baseball in Minnesota. And so we've got photos of all these, Little League field and Town Ball fields all throughout the state of Minnesota. And we kind of change those out over time. And so it's a cool place for people to visit, because all of a sudden you'll see somebody who might be in their 70s will see their field that they grew up playing on, or a local Town Ball team that they grew up watching, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember that field, and that kind of takes them back in time. So we really tried to make sure that that target field is about more than the Twins. It's really about the region and the state and the sport itself. And so the very first game that was ever played here was not a Twins game. It was March 27th, 2010. It was University of Minnesota Gophers baseball team. And it was a free event. You didn't have to have a ticket to come. We got over 30,000 people here. And, you know, it was a good dry run for us to make sure all the concessions equipment works and everything is working okay. But also really, I think, served to drive home the point that this facility was about more than just the Minnesota Twins. It was about, again, the state of Minnesota, and it was a civic asset and about the sport of baseball in general. It's a long time ago at this point, but it was a cool way to open up.
That's awesome that you incorporate sports history. It's always a great thing to do. Let's talk about how you got the job. A great job. I was very passionate. How did you get the job?
Like I say, I started off part-time back in 91 as an operator in the call center. And I did that off and on from 1991 until about 1996. Just a part-time seasonal job. And then 1998, a position opened up and I decided to give it a try. And that first 11 years was on the ticket operations and then sales side. Managed the call center, worked with the box office and the sales department in terms of season ticket and group ticket sales. Managed a group of sales reps that were selling those various products for us. In 2008, I actually managed the seat selection process of our season ticket holders to move from the Metrodome into Target Field. And that was a pretty big project. And a lot of moving pieces to it. I managed that. And I think that was really the project that kind of opened up this opportunity for me to become the guest services person. And they created the position when we moved into Target Field because it was just too much for one person to manage the facility and all the systems in it, in addition to managing the entire guest services staff. And so I moved into the ballpark operations department and became director of guest service. And it's been great. I really enjoyed my time in ticketing, and a lot of those people that I work with are still with the organization, and I've got great relationships with them and cherish that time. But for me, it's really fun to be a part of the game itself. To be out in the ballpark there during the game and helping people, making sure people are having a good time, being treated with respect, and we're maintaining a safe environment. It's really fun to do that, even though the hours are pretty crazy. In ticketing, kind of everything that you do leads up to the event. And so usually when I was working on the ticketing side, when I'd have home games, I would leave by about maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock. So you get through the first inning and a half, 2 innings, you've dealt with or the majority anyway, of the ticketing issues that are going to pop up, and you can turn it over to some of the other staff to manage things and head on out. So it was a lot easier in terms of the number of hours that I was working, but not nearly as fun, quite frankly. I mean, it's really fun to be out in the ballpark. And, baseball is a long season. It's a tough schedule to work. We'll have homestands that are 7, 8, 9 games long, with game after game after game every day. And so you'll get, tired over that time. And I'm continuing to get older. And so I don't recover quite as quickly as I used to, but, even at the end of those long homestands or the end of a long season, when you're pretty tired to start the day, you start getting within a couple hours of gate opening time, and you can feel the energy in the building starting to pick up, and you kind of feed off of that and kind of picks you up as well. So it's still a thrill to be in the ballpark and to be there when the games are going on. Last year it was great to have 60 game season and no fans in the ballparks. I was one of the fortunate few people that was actually here at the facility during all of those home games. Instead of managing a staff of 300 people, I had a staff of 6 people working, and it was all front office people who had volunteered, and really their job was just to track down foul balls that were going out into the stands. To to be honest, I mean, the main benefit of that was that it was just a way to get those folks into the ballpark, because otherwise they wouldn't have even had the opportunity to be at the ballpark, even though they're full-time front office members. So it was a kind of an excuse to get them in, and we were able to, maintain social distance, but see each other physically instead of just Zoom meetings. But without any fans in the ballpark, it was not any fun. I mean, it's the people in the ballpark that really make it an event and kind of give it that energy. The players feed off of that. It's what makes live sports a cool thing to go to for our fans, and a cool thing to do for me in terms of working here. And so, again, I feel very fortunate I've been in the ballpark, but this year has been way better. I mean, we've got people back here. Team obviously has struggled this year, but still, just to have 18 to 20,000 people together, enjoying a baseball game and a beautiful night, it's been great. And hopefully, knock on wood, we can keep moving in the right direction with COVID, and get back to operating without restrictions again next year. And knock on wood for us here at the Twins, it'll be a little better year on the field. And again, it's always more fun to win than to lose. But win or lose, it's still a great business.
That's awesome. You know me, I always like on different ballparks. It's my favorite thing to do. And you're fortunate enough to be there last year. It was a great season for you guys too. A great season, and it was awesome. It's awesome for you to be there. It sounded like fun. But you said, like, I'm excited right now. It's gonna be a lot of fun with like 162 game season. And I'm enjoying the game like so much this year as opposed to last year.
Yeah, it was it was interesting, at least the first few games, just to experience it. So strange, right? I mean, there's no fans in the ballpark. They're piping in all the crowd noise to try and give it some atmosphere, and it really
That'll be the show, right?
Yeah, literally, video game noises, but after a few games, I mean, really the novelty of it wore off, and you're like, okay, come on, let's get some people back in here. And this last Monday night, we had the Hella Mega Tour in town. So Green Day, Fall Out Boy, and Weezer. We had 37,000 for that. It was a great concert, really great crowd, not a lot of issues. So we got back in the saddle in terms of concerts. Usually we'll try to do one or two concerts every year if we can here. Got the Winter Classic coming up here. We've done a couple of college football games here. We had a soccer match, the Minnesota United. So we've had a lot of different types of events here, and it's just fun to be hosting those kind of things again. So it's been a great year on that front.
It's awesome. Definitely feels good to host again. But I don't want to say back to normal, but back to the way it was, kind of. Just feels good. Do you have like a favorite player? Could be current, could be past, like a mutual connection with?
Well, I don't really work with the players hardly at all, and it's funny. It's one of the questions people will ask me at first when they first find out I work for the Twins. Like, oh, do you know the players? Do you work with the players? And I feel like I feel like I can joke with them, I'll say, oh yeah, like those guys, they're always trying to hang out with me, and they're always trying to get me to go out to clubs with them. And I'm like, guys, I got a wife and kids. And then they'll say, really? And I'll say, no, not really. Like the players have no idea who I am. There's 20 interns that work here that will have more contact with the players in 2 weeks than I'll have hardly ever, probably, right? But it's just not my role. I'm out in the ballpark helping the fans, and I'm not really a part of the organization that works with the players. So I don't really have a lot of personal stories about player interactions that way. My favorite Twins player, because of my age and the era I grew up in, and he was the main player on our 2 world championship teams, was Kirby Puckett. So we won 2 championships here in 1987 and 1991. And he was kind of the spark plug for those teams. So he's my favorite, I would say, overall. Harmon Killebrew, another Hall of Famer that we've had, and just the nicest guy you can imagine. Such a friendly guy, very accessible. He passed away, I want to say, in 2012 or 2013, but just a really classy guy. Jim Tomy was another guy who was just a super class act, and we had him in 2010, and I think first half of 2011, I want to say. But he at that stage in his career, I don't know if he was doing this his entire career. I kind of doubt it. But as he was getting closer and closer to 600 home runs, and clearly a first ballot Hall of Fame career player, he was collecting every one of his home run balls. And so if he hit a home run here at Target Field, and he hit quite a number of them here, our staff would have to go on the stands and locate the person with that baseball and get it back to Jim Tomy. And, we can't compel somebody to give the baseball up. If they really want to keep it, that's their right. But the deal was that our staff would escort that person and their group down to our service level just outside the clubhouse. And Jim Tomy would come out and sign some items for them, talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes and trade that stuff for the baseball. So it was a great deal for these people, right? I mean, they get to go down and shake hands with the Hall of Famer and talk to him for a while. And he, kind of like Harmon Killebrew, was such a nice guy, just really friendly and genuinely friendly and interested in these people and thanked them for being willing to come down and give him the baseball. So it's cool when you hear stories like that. So I was never involved in any of those. It was my staff that did that. But I was aware it was going on, and that was really cool. One thing that you'll probably like hearing, Mariano Rivera, that last year when he was going to every ballpark, and I think this eventually made it out in the press. But at every ballpark he went to, he had the home team put together a group of part-time employees, and it was typically people that worked concessions, housekeeping, ticket office, event staff. I mean, a whole wide range. It might be 15 people or so. They'd put a suite aside, and he would meet with them. And it was like an hour and a half, and just thank them for all that they did to put these games on and to make baseball what it is. And he asked them questions about what they did and their family, and took a genuine interest in these people. He took a photo with each of them and personally autographed it for them. And he didn't have to do that. It was something that he totally thought up and did all on his own. But these are people that are again, part-time hourly workers. They're doing hard jobs, and they're not used to thinking that these famous baseball players really think twice about them. And for him, as arguably the greatest player at his position as a closer in the history of the game, right? To meet with them and talk with them about what their lives were like and learn about them and thank them. That was awesome. And so it's even though I'm not involved in any of those things, it's really cool when you hear about those things, because you hear about plenty of players that maybe are misbehaving. That stuff gets out in the press and helps to sell newspapers and get clicks on websites. And sometimes you don't hear about the good things that a lot of these guys do enough, I think. So it's really fun to hear about those things that these players do. And it gives me a lot of respect for them when you hear about those things. So Mariano Rivera, guy's aces in my book, even though I never liked seeing him come out and pitch against us, because it was pretty much lights out, game over. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Mariano's such a class, such a class act. And Jim Tomy too. I was fortunate enough to go where first year in Cleveland they put the statue up. I was there, and such a great experience. And they're such great players. They're players that make the game so much better. If have connection with people, and they can talk about it the next day. Like, I met so and so the next day, so it's great. I like the game so much.
Yeah, and obviously they're all very well compensated, and they've got great lives in a lot of ways. But it's just nice when you hear about them being great people in addition to great players. Joe Mauer, another guy who did tons of things in the community for us up here. A lot of school visits. He works with Gillette Children's Hospital very closely at this point, even in his retirement now. So just another great person. But again, it's so funny because I hear about all these things, but it's not like I really, again, have anything to do with them. Like, I have no idea who I am. I don't interact with them, and it's not a big deal to me. It's not really why I'm in this business. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy what I do. Just being out in the ballpark and meeting people and helping them out. And I've got a lot of people that I've known for 10, 12 years now here at Target Field, and formed really great kind of ballpark friendships with them over the years. And it's one of the fun parts of the job, and it's one of the things that is maybe a little bit different about this business than some other businesses, is that you've got so much, at least in my role, so much public interaction that there's a lot of opportunity to make these long-term relationships. And you and your family was like maybe 6-7 years ago at this point. It was a while ago.
6 years ago.
Yeah. See, we're still hanging out here talking. So this is an example of that exact thing right there.
Of course, yeah. I was like, yeah, we gotta keep in touch. Ever since you hooked me up, I was like, you gotta keep in touch. You're a great guy, obviously great person to talk to. Since you mentioned that, take me back to the letter. I know I didn't address it to you. I remember that, but take me back how you got the letter and what happened.
Yeah, I guess I didn't remember that was a letter. A lot of these things come in via email. But as I recall it, just kind of reached out and said, hey, I'm coming to a game with my family and just wondering if there's anything we can do and if there's any type of special thing we can do to make the visit kind of more impactful and more fun. I remember what really kind of stuck out to me at the time was just how, and you were in high school at the time, right? It was like maybe a sophomore in high school. It was just such a mature, well-written correspondence, and just in such a kind of a friendly manner, and it seemed unusual to me at the time that I was getting something like that from somebody who was still in high school. And so I'm like, oh yeah, for sure. And so, I figured out when you were coming down here, I think we did field passes, didn't we? Go down on the field for batting practice, maybe?
Field passes, great. You hooked us up for batting practice. Then
Yeah.
The Indians made it to the World Series that year. So it was great.
Yeah, I was able to kind of take maybe a little bit of a tour of the ballpark here. So there's a handful of things that I typically can do to kind of give somebody a better experience. Now this year, unfortunately, field visits and batting practice stuff are just not happening. We're still operating under MLB COVID restrictions, and they're so concerned, and rightfully so, about trying to keep the players as healthy and safe as they can. So like the pregame parades that we used to do for like Little League Day and things like that, those are pretty much a thing of the past now, at least this year. So we're a little bit more restricted, but batting practice is one of the things that we like to do when we can. If we've got somebody we want to take care of, we can do kind of tours of the ballpark. We'll bring out goodie bags to people, bring out maybe an autographed baseball or bobblehead or something of that sort. We can do scoreboard greetings for people, so we can put their name up, say, hey, Minnesota Twins, special welcome to this person, or happy birthday messages, things like that. So we got a number of things we can do when we find out there's some reason we want to celebrate someone or try to kind of elevate the experience up a little bit. And that's really fun to do as well. I mean, just people are so thankful when you are able to do things like that for them, because they've got such a strong emotional attachment to the team or the sport maybe, or something of that sort. So it really has a big impact for them. So it's fun to do that kind of stuff.
Nice. That's awesome. Especially keeping the players safe, especially now. It's a very big priority to do. So, but let's swing. Let's swing it to quick fire now. Some quick fire questions. It's not all going to be baseball related, so I'm just gonna fire them up. So,
all right, let's do it.
Favorite cereal?
Favorite cereal?
Yeah.
Cocoa Crisps.
Nice. Coffee or tea in the morning?
Coffee, absolutely.
Nice.
Every morning.
I had other guests come on too, and they said they only drink water in the morning. I'm like, come on, that's crazy.
Yeah, I cannot abide by that. No way. Coffee for sure.
Yeah, definitely. About favorite TV show?
Boy, that is a good one. I suppose it would be kind of a cop out to say Twins games. I've been watching a lot of The Good Place with one of my daughters recently, so I'll go with The Good Place.
Cool. That's awesome.
Old school.
Let's go with all right, what'd you think of the Field of Dreams game? Go back to baseball. Was
Absolutely awesome. Yes, I thought it was great. I'm glad that MLB is continuing with that. Such a cool thing. I questioned the dimensions of the field when I saw how many home runs were getting hit, but it was the White Sox and Yankees, and those teams can mash. So it might just be the nature of the teams that were playing. But I think that was great. Yeah.
What did you think of my man Andrew Velasquez with the first home run against your Twins? It was great.
I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder, maybe. So it was great for him, right? No, yeah, I'm happy for any guys that have success. And it's hard to hit major league pitching, and so hats off to him. And I guess it was going to happen at one point or another. But maybe we just can avoid the topic of Twins versus Yankees going forward here, George.
Yeah. No worries. Yeah, it's just a great story. Obviously, he's locally, he's from the Bronx, grew up Yankee fan, so it's a great story overall. I don't even know what they're going to do with Torres now.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? And it's always so hard to know, especially when guys are just starting off, if they're going to be able to maintain success. And it's been said that MLB is kind of a league of adjustments, and any professional sport is. But teams will start to scout the players and figure out where their weaknesses are, and then that's a matter of whether you can overcome how they adjust to you. So it's kind of a constant cat and mouse game going on.
Favorite sport besides baseball?
Besides baseball, that's a tough one. It's funny though, because I'm not against any other sports, but I spend so much time doing baseball, and it's such a long season that I don't have a lot of other time to watch other sports. And it's not because I don't like them necessarily. It's just I've got kids and a family and other things I got to get to, and so I just don't have that block of time on the weekends to watch a football game for a few hours, or a lot of hockey or basketball. I watch all of them to some degree. I just try to keep up on what's going on with especially the local teams, because it's my business and it's the industry that I work in. But I don't consume a ton of it as a fan at this point, which is much different than when I was growing up. And when I was younger, I would watch, let's say, NFL and college basketball are my two favorite sports.
That's me too. So it's awesome.
Yeah. College basketball it's great. It's highly entertaining. It's fun to watch.
I went to the college basketball museum when I went to Kansas City. It was a great time. It was awesome.
Yeah.
What about favorite snack?
Favorite snack? I've been trying to eat healthier, so I'd say right now I'm reaching for baby carrots.
Nice. That's awesome.
Get me in a couple months. Might be back to potato chips and other things. I'm trying to be good right now. As you get older, George, you may find as I have that some of the pounds you wish weren't there are a little harder to come off.
Favorite color?
Favorite color?
Yeah.
Blue.
Nice. Yeah, great shirt. You're rocking the blue today. I love it.
Yeah, got the baby blue. Got the baby blue going on here. Carolina blue.
Nice. So last year, let's do our trivia question. It's about me. So pressure's on. Do you know who my favorite player was coming in the Twins at that time?
Favorite player on the Twins at what time?
Yeah, I had the jersey on. Was excited.
Boy, was it when you were visiting out here?
Yeah.
Let's see. That would have been 2015, 2016. Torrey Hunter.
No.
No. Byron Buxton.
He's one of the legends. You mentioned him before.
Kirby.
No. He's
Tomy.
No, not Tomy.
Killebrew.
No, he's a current player when he was on the team. He was playing first base. He was no longer at his original position.
Oh, Mauer. Okay.
Yeah, Joe Mauer. Yeah, it was
very nice.
It was my favorite player before. Now Bryce Harper's my favorite, but before that it was always Joe Mauer is my favorite. I love his sideburns, always cool. His long sideburns, and just played the game the right way. And I told my dad, we got to see the game then before he retires. I know he's gonna retire. I'm not gonna see him play, so you gotta go over there. And he was like, we went that year, and it was awesome.
Yeah, he man, just an amazing player, and it's too bad that he had the knee issues that he did, and then some of the concussions he got. He played there when you could still take catchers out at home plate, so he had some nasty collisions back there, in addition to kind of the normal wear and tear that all catchers go through. Because he was such an amazing catcher. I mean, just incredible back there. But he grew a couple inches after we drafted him, even when he was 18. And so he was 6'6". He was really tall, which makes catcher a tough position on the knees, because there's just a lot higher to get up to when you're standing up from that crouch when you're 6'6". So learned a new position, mid-career, and was really a very, very good first baseman defensively. People knocked him sometimes for not having a ton of power. But it just wasn't his game. And if he would have focused on power, he would have hit for power. But he was just an average. It was kind of his focus, high average, line drive kind of a hitter. He took some heat from Twins fans, kind of the latter part of his career, because of the contract he signed, and people just had expectations that he was going to hit 400 with 45 home runs. And be an all-star catcher for the entire period of that contract that he had, a 10-year contract he signed, I think, in 2010. It wasn't 10 years, it was 7-8 years, somewhere in there. And I think once he actually retired, people were able to look back more clearly at his career and appreciate him for just the amazing player he was. And I will say also, his last game, and he didn't announce his retirement until after that last season. So we didn't know for sure that was going to be his last season or not. People were kind of suspecting it was, but he didn't announce it for sure. And so as an organization, we were in kind of a weird spot, because you can't celebrate him for his career, not knowing that he's actually going to retire, the way you would if it was for sure that he was in his last season. So that last game, first of all, it was a Sunday, and we had this thing called the kids starting lineup, where there'd be kids that would go out with each position. And so they would be announced and run out to each position with the players. So it's really a cool thing we do for the community. He's playing first base, and they announced first base last. And his two twin daughters were the kids that came out. They were 5 years old at the time. So it's kind of touching moment where his daughters went on the field and give their dad a big hug out there. And then, hadn't played catcher in years. And I had no idea this was going on, but thankfully I was in a spot in the ballpark where I was able to see this. And we're heading into the ninth inning, the top of the ninth, and nobody's on the field. So something is going on, clearly. And then Mauer comes out in his catcher gear, and the place just erupts. And I mean, there's people just like sobbing in the stands, literally. I mean, people just crying their eyes out. He comes out and tips his hat off, and he's catching one last time, right? He catches one pitch, and they're concerned. They wanted this to be done the right way. And so I guess the managers had talked about this ahead of time and knew this was going to happen. And they didn't want the batter to swing, because they're worried about, Joe had a number of concussions, that something might happen and they could inadvertently give him another concussion. So they arranged that it would be a ball, and he threw it wide. So Joe caught that, and then they pulled Joe out of the game. And so they stopped the game, and Joe again kind of tipped his hat to the crowd and headed off. And that was his last game, last inning of his last game. And it was just like a spine tingling moment. There was so much emotion in the ballpark. It was incredible. It was in my mind, the closest thing to like Lou Gehrig's famous speech that he gave that I have ever been in a ballpark for, just in terms of the fan reaction and kind of the power of the moment. And we joked about it afterwards. Like, you know, that was so perfect. And in that game, he had laced a classic double, a Mauer double to the opposite field. He stretched a single into a double. So he played a really good game that game. And we joked about it afterwards. Like, you know, even if he wasn't planning on retiring, we kind of forced him to retire, because how could you have a last game more perfect than how that was? You know, it's like, well, I guess I got to retire now, because that was just too perfect for the last game. And you know, as a Minnesota guy, he still lives here. He's still heavily involved in a lot of the community things that the organization does. And like a lot of our former players, he'll be a part of this organization in some form until he decides he doesn't want to do that stuff anymore. So probably another, I don't know, probably till he's in his 70s, I would guess.
That's awesome. I remember throwing it back. You said the game. You feel the catches again from his car, and it's like very nostalgia that moment. Bringing back to like so many memories. So it was awesome to see that from like on TV. It was great.
Yeah, it was like I say, it was an amazing thing to be in the ballpark for and to see, and just so much emotion. And I'm not kidding. I mean, literally, people were just crying their eyes out. They were just overcome with it all. It was cool. Anything we can do to make people cry, we want to do that, right?
Yeah. You know, he went to the same high school as Paul Molitor.
Yeah. No, there are some great players to come out of St. Paul. Jack Morris, Dave Winfield, Paul Molitor, Joe Mauer. So they've had some serious baseball success.
Nice. And one of my childhood one player from my childhood teams actually played for it was in the same high school as Joe Mauer and Paul Molitor. It's Ryan McDonough. He's played on the Rangers when they have those great runs. Have to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, they had a great baseball program. It's Cretin-Durham Hall, which is probably about 2 miles from where I live in St. Paul, so I drive by it all the time. They've got a big scoreboard up there. Lists Joe Mauer and Paul Molitor. I haven't seen Ryan McDonough's name up there, but I would imagine it's got to be up there somewhere. So they do celebrate their successes there, and it's been a very successful program. I mean, Joe Mauer, Paul Molitor, obviously Hall of Famer, right? You know, it's hard to knock anything about his career. But Joe Mauer was an incredible athlete in several sports in high school. He had a commitment to be the quarterback for Florida State. So we drafted him out of high school, but if he wouldn't play baseball, he was essentially one of the top football recruits in the entire country. He was an amazing basketball player too. I mean, he just was an athlete all the way around.
That's awesome, all around athlete.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts? We're gonna wrap up the episode. Any final thoughts? Let's have everybody.
You know, I just really appreciate the time to talk with you, George, and I'm glad to see that you're doing well. I remember meeting you and your family when you're out here like it was yesterday practically, and just another example of what I love about working in this business and occupying the role that I have. So it's kind of these human connections that I think really make life great, but also this particular business that we're in here. So super fun to spend some time with you here. Hope people enjoy listening to this and watching this. Pro sports definitely has its place in what we're all about, and I'm glad people enjoy it and that we're able to kind of help them have a good time here.
Definitely, 100%. Where could people reach you? You have Instagram, Twitter.
I'm an old guy. I am kind of a ghost on social media. I'm on LinkedIn is pretty much the only thing I'm on. So they can reach me by email, phone, or in person. And I'll leave
Those
this.
down below on the description. I got you with the email.
Yeah. So I'm always here. I work every single game. Love it. So if anybody's coming out to Minnesota, let me know, and we'll see what we can do to make it a positive experience. And that's what we do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure, and happy to reconnect like the good old days. And see you in a splash.
Sounds great. Best of luck to you. And it was great to see you again, my friend.
See you too.